culture, it's important, but it's as amorphous as it is important. For instance, if I'm going to try to figure out the defining characteristics of another culture, it would be difficult to figure out what the list is of all the different things I would need to look at. And even if I could come up with that list, still, how would I figure out how that would work in something like warfare? Hard to know. But the difficulty of the problem doesn't make it go away. And so we're going to look at it today, and we're going to look at Japanese theorists and belief systems, and then if you believe these things, how this influences your practice. Tojo Hideki said in December 1st, 1941, that our country stands on the threshold of glory or oblivion. He got that right. And he's in an imperial conference where he is confirming with Hirohito that Pearl Harbor is going to be a go. But he felt that Japan really needed to do something rather than being ground down, being passive. And here is Admiral Yamamoto Isoroku, who was the man who came up with the operational plan for Pearl Harbor. He thought it had really long odds of being successful. General Tojo gave it a 50-50 chance. Admiral Yamamoto wasn't even sure that it was that good, but he felt it was the best possible plan for Japan to get out of its predicament. Now, from a Western point of view, this makes no sense. You're talking about getting the United States potentially into a war with Japan that's already overextended in China. Who does this? Either you need to ratchet back the policy objective, and or you need to downgrade your strategy to something a little more costly or risky. And I suppose what you can do is go, oh, they're stupid. Okay. I guess if I call you stupid, that makes me so smart because I can denigrate you. Explains nothing. So rather than do that, they're very intelligent men. And why are they doing these? Why do they consider their actions rational, and rational in what context? So this is what I'm going to be up to. And I can start with a little story to illustrate my point. In the summer of 1943, this is after the battles of the Solomons, New Guinea, Guadalcanal, they're all over with. The Imperial Japanese Army had a war college. An instructor comes into class one day, and he says, from now on, the curriculum's changed. The main emphasis is going to be countering U.S. tactics instead of what they had been teaching was Soviet tactics. And we'll become the A course. And if anyone can teach this, go ahead, because I don't know a damn thing about it. Talk about being unprepared for seminar. And then think about it. Where are the Japanese actually fighting most of the time? What is the country that most matters to them at the end of the day? It would be China. And that's not what their war colleges are studying. Something's up here. Now, they're clearly making a really bad net assessment about the United States. Okay, this country also is known for lousy net assessments. I don't believe ours about Vietnam was particularly good either. And that's one part of the problem. So here's my game plan for this evening. I'm first going to talk about traditional Japanese theorists. And then it's going to be talking about Japanese practice. How, if you have this belief system, how explanatory is it for practice? This is my game plan right now. So the Japanese don't have just the one book like Sun Tzu's The Art of War or Clausewitz's On War. What they have is Bushido, Code of the Samurai. It's a whole literature, and it was written in the Tokugawa period, which quite ironically was a period known for peace, not warfare. Never mind. And what's interesting about this literature from a Western perspective, it's really not about military strategy. It's about deportment. It's how a samurai should conduct himself. And this reflects Japanese values and what the things that they emphasize. And so I'm going to go through it with you. Here's the game plan on the theorists. First, I'm going to talk about the philosophical origins of Bushido, then the values that underpin it, and then the operational preferences that grow out of it. That's the game plan for first half. And I'm going to use as my cultural bridge this man, Nitobe Inazo, who wrote a book much later in 1900, Bushido's Soul of Japan, Why Am I Doing This? He provides a concise definition of Bushido. And you can see he's an important figure in Japan. Not everybody gets their mug on the 5,000 yen note. So he's an important figure in Japan. He had spent 18 years abroad, and he had received higher education in Japan and a variety of Western institutions. He married, believe it or not, I don't make up these things, a Philadelphia Quaker, and he converted to Christianity. And he spent his life trying to serve as a cultural bridge, and that's how I'm going to use him today. And what he said is, unlike in the West, where notions of morality come from religion, in Japan they come from Bushido. And what is it? It's a chivalrous code of honor for the warrior class, these precepts of knighthood. There are three pillars of Bushido, according to Nitobe. They're Buddhism, Shinto, and Confucianism. From Buddhism is where you see Japanese fatalism, the origin of it. And here you have Nitobe saying, it's this calm trust in fate, a quiet submission to the inevitable, a friendliness with death. And it strikes Westerners reading this Bushido literature as a preoccupation with death. For instance, Clausewitz will talk about violence in warfare, but he's not interested in what constitutes an honorable death, let alone choreographing a soldier's final moments. Different culture. And from Buddhism, there are four noble truths of Buddhism. One is that existence is suffering, pessimistic view of this life. Second, it's caused by craving and attachment, so don't cling to this life or the things in it. It's all ephemeral. It's like a cherry blossom, blooms for a day and then it's gone. But there's a good ending to it all, which is nirvana. And how do you get there? The fourth noble truth is through forms of right conduct. So the emphasis isn't on what you achieve in your life. It's how you lead it. It's this focus on deportment. It's different from the West. Second pillar is Shinto, is this extreme patriotism, reverence for the emperor. And the third pillar is Confucianism, these imported ideas from China. Confucianism is at heart of how it's organizing a society and regulating it through interlocking social obligations, hierarchical, and through ritual and etiquette. So in the West, there's much talk about equality, right? And in the West, in the East, it's duty. It's what you owe other people. In the East, there is no such thing as social in China, in Japan of equality. Even twins have a birth order, and it's not about freedom either. It's about what you owe others. So if you think that these value systems seems really different, yeah, no kidding. It has nothing to do with the Greco-Roman Judeo-Christian West. Completely different value system. And so, Alice, welcome to Wonderland. Buckle up. We're off for a ride. And I'm going to start. Here's my first piece of the Tokugawa literature. Yamamoto Tsunetomo's The Hagakure that he wrote in the early 18th century. It translates variously as hidden leaves, hidden by the leaves. And in it, he is describing, I'm going to read you some short passages from it all. What was he? He was a retainer for a daimyo, a feudal lord in Japan. He hadn't actually done any fighting, even though he's writing all about it. So if you don't do, what do? You publish. And I will tell you what the man had to say. So here we go. One of the first things is this preoccupation with death. And here's Yamamoto. The way of the samurai is imagining the most sightly way of dying. Merit lies more in dying for one's master than in striking down the enemy. The way of the samurai is found in death. It is not necessary to gain one's aim, but if you live on without achieving it, it's cowardice. However, if you don't gain your aim and die, that's okay. This is really different from Clausewitz, where it's all about achieving the policy objective. It's not about how the soldier's leading his life. And here you can see the consequences of this, right? If you're focusing on no fears of death, and if you can't succeed, living on is a disaster. Think of the Banzai charges, when Japanese remnants would go headlong into oncoming machine gun fire, knowing full well what was going to happen. This is not the way other armies have behaved. Different value system. All right. In addition to at death, this Bushido literature's emphasis on honor, back to Yamamoto. The way of avoiding shame is different. It's simply death, even if it seems certain that you will lose, retaliate. Think of General Tojo and Admiral Yamamoto Isoroku. Now, and if you suffer a catastrophic defeat, here's the solution. In the event of a mortifying failure, you're going to wind up committing suicide, because the alternative, if you live on in shame, you're bringing everyone you're associated with shame. And I'm going to use Nitobe to be the cultural bridge. He said, in our minds, this mode of death is associated with the instances of noblest deeds and most touching pathos. So this vilest form of death assumes a sublimity and becomes a symbol of new life. It's a way to escape from disgrace. And in Japanese literature, there is the tragic hero who is pursuing noble but unattainable aims, and rather than making disagreeable compromises, goes down in flames. This is what seppuku is all about. And Nitobe is saying, look, death involving a question of honor was accepted in Bushido as a key solution to many complex problems. And you can think in World War II, yeah, it was. Complex problems like battle plans not working out and a war that was truly not working out. All right. So in addition to death and suicide and honor, we've got loyalty. It's another key value. And back to Yamamoto, being a good retainer is nothing other than being a supporter of one's lord. A man is a good retainer to the extent that he earnestly places importance in his master. Having only wisdom and talent is the lowest tier of usefulness. So much for Silicon Valley. For a warrior, there is nothing other than thinking of his master. And so back in the day, it's thinking of your feudal lord. In more recent times, it's prioritizing your company over family. In China, it's the reverse priority. It's family over company. And it's different cultures, different priorities.